21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
I think most people think of aesthetics really as like beauty and Botox or plastic surgery and med spa. But I'm really here again to talk about the business of aesthetics and what's actually behind it. Which is again where I think beauty, data, KPIs, and training is the desire that is going to help the strategy turn six-figure businesses into eight-figure medical practices. I've built systems that have helped private businesses, private equity companies, go from barely profitable to valuations of upwards 10 million. So whether you run a med spa or you run a tech company, the fundamentals are the same. Knowing your numbers, training your people, building something scalable, and that's really what we're going to unpack today. So I'm Terry Ross, CEO and founder of Terry Ross Consulting and the co-founder of the Forest Summit. I've spent 20 years scaling medical aesthetic practices and wellness practices into high-performing, sellable businesses. So if you want to understand how to build a business that doesn't just look good, but operates like a true machine that is ready to be scalable, this is a conversation for you. The medical aesthetic and wellness field is explosive, and we're thinking about an audience highly credible with highly trained experience, plastic surgeons, facial plastic surgeons, integrative medicine, cosmetic dermatology, OB-GYNs, cosmetic dentists. Everybody's getting into the med spa space. But what happens is you go to medical school, no one teaches you the business of medicine. So you get out of school, you're ready to help patients, you've spent 10 or 20 years, you have debt, and now you're deciding, do I go work in a hospital? Do I open up my own brick and mortar business? But in order to do that requires, do you have enough cash flow, right? Or do you need a bank loan? Do you need a feasibility study? How are you going to hire a team? How are you going to pay them? What equipment are you going to buy? What services are you going to offer? Do you understand your gross profit? How are you going to get your patients in the door? How much marketing spend are you going to have? Who are you going to hire to do your website? I could go on and on what it requires to be in a cash-based business, but it's very complicated. I've had the pleasure to speak at over 25 conferences globally around the world, helping to educate medical aesthetical professionals on the value and the importance of the business of aesthetics. The value to these aesthetic practices is really looking at it from an overarching perspective, which is 7 strategic pillars. And this is applicable to any business, really looking at revenue optimization, staff training and development, patient acquisition and retention, your technology and your analytics, operational excellence, market readiness, and then long-term success. Now, if we're going to break down a few of these, for me to give you some very specific value, let's think about revenue optimization. For any business to succeed, it has to be profitable. When we're thinking about medical aesthetic practices and looking at the treatments that patients would go in and want to get, they might want to go in and get Botox, but there's a cost of goods associated related to that. There's labor associated related to that. There's marketing, there's G&A. And at the end of the day, these businesses are losing money. So what we do is we do an analysis of these medical procedures, and we have to look at what is the market demand from a cost perspective. And so we say, what is that gross profit of that particular procedure? And in medical aesthetics, we want the gross profit in a non-surgical world to be over 60%. Surgery, it's usually over 90%. And so if we're not hitting those target benchmarks, after we've paid labor, cost of goods, time, G&A, we're losing money. So what we do and what we optimize for practices, and we'll look at that and identify the areas of opportunity. This is what I say. We'll look at inefficiencies. Is the doctor spending too much time in the room? is the pricing strategy high enough, right? How do we make a few changes within that medical practice that will allow them to have exponential growth just by understanding their gross profit of procedures? That would lead into the marketing demand of what they need to do, which is, again, has helped practices grow upwards of $2.5 million in 1 year. Next opportunity that I see in the market today is hands down. And, I spent 16 years in Fortune 500. We're going to focus on training and development. Why? People are being hired to work in these medical aesthetic practices. And unfortunately, there's very little training for these employees. And what do I mean by that? You have people answering the phones that have to convert that caller into a paid appointment. You have providers seeing patients who have exponential degree of medicine to be able to diagnose, but they're not salespeople. But in a cash-based business, we are selling. You're selling a journey, outcome, results, experience. But as a business consultant, what you're actually selling is time. And when time is gone, you can't get it back. So if we're running a medical practice, you have to make money. And unfortunately, the misconception in the market today is, well, I'm not going to charge a consultation fee, or I'm going to discount my services. This is still medicine. Nobody values anything for free. So when we think about staff training, it is the number one investment you can make and the highest return. Why? Because you're spending money in marketing to acquire a patient, which is very expensive. If you're not converting those patients at a 70% ratio, you're losing them, which means you're losing money. If you did get the patient to come in the door and you see me and the doctor or medical providers doing a consultation, and I choose to walk out the door and go to 3 other people, you've also lost me. And that is where there's hundreds of thousands of dollars being left on the table because the team is not trained with specific methodologies, tactics, and a framework. And I get it, sales is hard. I've spent my entire career. But in a business that requires you to, overcome your competition, we're either in a sea of commoditization or you're in a sea of providing unique value proposition based on your expertise and your experience as a provider. So your greatest investment that you can make is, again, looking at your team, who you have on board, and spending the time and the money to get them the proper training. Now let's talk about what is really something that is such a pain point for me, and that is marketing in medical aesthetics. I understand marketing for any business, whatever sector that you're in, requires a specific marketing spend. But there's also a strategy around it. It's not spaghetti at the wall and you hope it sticks. So if we're thinking about medical aesthetics, and again, a very explosive market globally, everybody wants to look good, feel good. We're spending money, the wellness, the GLP-1s. This is here to stay. But again, if you want to have a sustainable, profitable business, that means you have to know who you are. What is the narrative, right? What is your value proposition? There's riches in the niches. You don't need to be everything to everybody, but you do need to understand your avatar client. Marketing to a 20-year-old is different than marketing to a 55-year-old that wants a facelift. It's a very different messaging strategy. These people are also sitting on a very different sector. Some on Facebook, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram, looking at your website. So marketing acquisition and retention is critical. And in medical aesthetics, the average marketing spend should really be only 10% of your total revenue. Sometimes I see it often very inflated. Why? Because we think I need more people in the door, more people in the door. When in reality, back to the training, if you were actually training your team, you need less. You need to nurture the patients that you have to improve outcomes, have greater retention, increase lifetime value, which is going to reduce your marketing spend, and that will allow you to have a sustainable business with people that have a know, like, and trust factor with you. When we think about the 7 strategic pillars that I went through, and we just took an opportunity to break down 3 of them, the revenue optimization, staff training and development, and patient acquisition and retention. That is really, those are 3 strategic pillars that are part of our method at Terry Ross Consulting. And one of the programs we offered is called the Scale Method. And what that is really taking an opportunity to lift up the hood. We'll do a diagnostic on your practice where we assess every department within your practice. We'll identify the areas of opportunity and write you a formal business report of all of our findings, more importantly, what you need to do to fix it. Then you have one direct call, 90-minute call with our team. So it's a one-on-one program. Again, assessing your business. That is the true blueprint of your business to give you the guiding points of what you need to do to, again, increase efficiencies, increase profitability, increase revenue, to have a sustainable, sellable company. Now, going from, spending, 10, 12 years at a university, studying medicine, studying your specialty, coming out into the real world and being in the business of aesthetics, there is a very big difference going from theoretical learning to the practicality of running a business. And it's going to come down to 2 fundamentals that are a proven method. This is what we focus on and what we do. And that is understanding aesthetic and wellness industry benchmarks, KPIs, and your analytics. That is the navigation point that tells the story and helps you make informed decisions that will make or break your business. And then the next thing is training. Once we understand the data, now we have to train our team that are held accountable to these specific KPIs so we can ensure that they are meeting the benchmarks that will allow you to outperform your competitors, again, have a sustainable, profitable practice. So we just spoke about the importance of industry benchmarks, data, and KPIs. And if you really want to understand more about that in the medical aesthetic wellness space, you can visit terryrossconsulting.com. I invite you to visit the store. I have a phenomenal book all about the top 10 KPIs that are must-haves to manage and measure in your aesthetic practice.
'21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Imagine a space where triumphs, trials, and tales of entrepreneurship come alive. Welcome to the 21st Century Entrepreneurship Podcast, a gold awarded journey hosted by Martin Piskarik, connecting with listeners in 95 countries and ranking in the top 0.5% of all podcasts. Join our exclusive community, elevate your perspective, and embark on the path to success.